Today I'm here with Frame, community manager over at Supercell for Project Rise, and Julien, game lead for Project Rise. We'll be talking about, what do you expect? We're talking about Project Rise. I just got to experience the early alpha of the game, fell in love with it, being a fan of both Supercell games, specifically the whole Clash universe, and action RPGs. The combination of these two was outstanding for me, so I figured I'd bring these two on and we talk about what's going on right now and potentially the future of Project Rise. Frame, Julien, thanks for coming on today and agreeing to answer a few questions for the community.
No worries.
Great to be here. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's my pleasure. Such a quick intro from you guys. I had so much to say and then you just jumped right into your thanks for having us. All right, so I got a bunch of questions that I kind of accumulated as I was playing through the game and that the community is probably interested in hearing about as well. So I guess let's start pretty broad and then kind of narrow our way down as we go. And Project Rise, it's the first time that Supercell, at least that we've seen on the outside, ever attempted an action RPG, I guess outside of Moko, because Moko kind of does the same thing, but this is in a Supercell realm. How do you envision a dream gameplay experience? What are you guys really shooting for with Project Rise?
That's a really big question. I mean, ultimately, all we want to do is make a great game that people love, right? It's as simple as that. Now, when you talk about the dream gameplay experience, it's really about bringing the marketing material to life. So if you've seen the Clash animations, it's got this kind of, very energetic, almost Looney Tunes level of vitality kind of thing. And that's what we want to create as an interactive experience. So making sure that the marketing material is what you play.
Are you saying we're having playable Clash-orama?
Maybe.
No.
That wouldn't be a bad idea. Clash-orama is a lot of fun for sure. All right, so that makes a lot of sense. I love the idea and the whole concept, at least that we're starting off with right there. Now, I played the pre-alpha, and we need to remember here also, whether you were watching me stream it or other content creators put content out for it, or if you had the chance to test it yourself, a lot of times we forget this is pre-alpha. Most people don't get the opportunity to test out games that early on, and I was actually really surprised on how smooth it played. I've played early versions of games before, and there were typically a lot of bugs that you run into, and sometimes even an unplayable experience, which I didn't have with Project Rise. Of course, there were little things that jumped up here and there, but that's kind of expected. So it was so early in development. I love the experience myself. Tell us why you decided to come out as a team so early and share the game at such an early stage, at a pre-alpha. I don't think you guys over at Supercell have ever shared something that early.
No, it's never happened before. I think for us as a team, we really believe in constraints, right? So if you have infinite time, infinite money, you're never going to ship a game. You're going to spend your time just making it better and, just iterating forever, ever after, pretty much. So what we really want to do is just put it out there, get some feedback, validate some assumptions, and make sure that we understand, what people like, what they don't like, any kind of pain points you might experience in the game. As an example, the perk selection system, it does interrupt gameplay quite a bit. We knew that. Of course, we've played our own game, but it's, now it's validated and we have to fix it, kind of thing. It's also really good for us to prioritize things we want to work on. We're a small team with a tight schedule. We cannot do everything, right? We're not a 200 people team. So we have to make sure that we do what matters for our players. And that's the best way to find out, is just having people play the game.
Yeah, I'm a huge proponent of transparency, just showing people where we're at the current stage without any filters. So I think the idea of showing people, listen, everything starts with gameplay. Everything. If the game doesn't feel right to play, it doesn't matter what meta you have. It doesn't matter how good graphics you have. It doesn't matter. Nothing else matters. So if we do this test that is purely gameplay focused, and again, we on Discord, you saw during the playtests in Europe and US, we reminded people, yes, we know there is no alpha, there is no meta progression. there is no anything in between. We know that dropping from floor 30 to 1 feels bad. Yes, we get it. But if the game doesn't feel right to play with these characters that we have in the game,
exactly, yeah,
we have nowhere else to go. We shouldn't even take the next step. So yeah.
No, that makes sense. And I mean, and that fits along with early alpha. You were trying to get an initial test to kind of see what the community sentiment was. And I mean, we all gave, or I should say, probably a lot of people gave feedback. I'm sure a lot of that feedback that you received, you were already expecting.
Yeah.
Which brings me to the community element of it as well. I think it was really cool that you not only brought in a bunch of content creators and you know, Supercell creators, but you also brought in a bunch of community as well. I thought that was really cool. I know that a lot of people from the community were excited to be part of it, and it allowed everyone to feel like they had a valuable word in, you know, the progression of Project Rise. So I just want to say I thought that was cool for you guys to do as a team. Obviously, we also needed people to play against, right? So it couldn't just be a small handful of people, but nice job there. What are some things that you learned? I know that you were probably expecting a lot, like dropping from level 30 to level 1 would feel bad, which it did. What did you actually learn from the testing session that you were like, okay, that's validated, now we can move forward with that, and that's going to help us develop the game further?
Damn, we learned a lot, to be honest. I mean, I think we've validated the gameplay, second-to-second gameplay. The game feels good, it's satisfying to play. Now, I'm not going to say we're there just yet. There's still a lot to improve on, but the foundations are solid. That's definitely what we learned. We've validated some pain points. So I've talked about perk selection system, but also the lack of communication features, for example, not having a lobby. Of course, these are things we're going to have down the road, but knowing that this is as important as it is for players, it just allows us to prioritize it better. So some of these things we're going to work on earlier than we would have without this kind of input, even though they were, you know, still part of the development process. But yeah, we're just going to be able to adapt better to what people want, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about, like, we know, again, like in the company, we also play tested a game. Like a bunch of people in the company play tested and they give us feedback. But it's different when the game behaves in a real world scenario. Like when you have like a real server with real humans playing for like 3 hours straight and like, you know, let us see what's the flow of this. We watched your streams, we watched other creators' live streams, and we were just like interested to see the emotional investment and reaction to these things. And one thing that blew my mind was that how many people actually came back for day 2, which is also, by the way, totally unexpected, because the game doesn't have 2 days worth of content. Like, it just doesn't. Like, you could beat the game pretty easily, like by unlocking Firecracker, and that would be pretty much it. Like that's all you're gonna get. Like, there's nothing else. Everything is just like not even extremely fun to replay at that point, especially coming from our game designer from Remnant that was like commenting about this, and he was blown away by the amount of people that came back. And then the amount of people that from NA servers came to Europe was insane as well. Like the amount of people that were invested into like just trying to like crack as many like things into the game and just see how every character plays to a degree where like we didn't even anticipate was pretty mind-blowing. And so yeah, that was pretty cool. But yeah, again, it validates some points and also brings up some interesting elements that we never even anticipated. So
that's actually really cool to hear that you so I guess we could say that it was received really well by the community. They were playing it a lot more than you expected. And you're right, like there's only so many times you can climb the ladder and then go down to the bottom of the ladder and then reclimb it before it's the replayability. Obviously, I enjoyed it. A lot of the community enjoyed it, which must have made you guys feel good. Bringing me to my next question. What are some of the main goals or objectives that players are going to be pursuing inside of the game? I know that this tower system that you have is a portion of the game. I'm sure it's going to, in some ways, change. I'm sure there's going to be more built out from it. So what is the pursuit going to look like?
I mean, the main goal is to conquer the tower, right? That's what it's about. No, it's not just about going up the floors, right? There will be additional systems and mechanics all around this to make it a fully fledged experience. But yeah, you try to conquer the tower. Now, the tower is a living thing in a way. So the tower is going to be always evolving, always reconfiguring itself, like changing its own structure, just to make sure that the game always stays interesting. So even though what you have played is just a slice of the experience, the content was very limited, it will be forever changing in a way. So that's what is exciting to us with this concept.
I like that. It sounds like when I play a lot of action RPGs. I love the genre, so that's kind of how things are. Modifiers, people fighting for leaderboards, time trials, and things like that. So I could see ways that those elements of action RPGs fit into this. With that being said, when you're creating Project Rise, how do you appeal to both the casual player, which I think Supercell does great? I talk about it all the time, having like 3 to 5 minute rounds within their games. You're not having to play a 30-minute session of something. You could go play a quick round of Clash Royale or a quick attack in Clash of Clans, quick round in Brawl Stars. I was wondering how you were going to do it, and seeing the tower system in play, it worked, and I think it was a lot of fun. But how do you balance out casual players having enjoyment with the game, as well as, you know, those hardcore grinders with this type of gameplay?
It's always a balancing act, right? We don't really look at the audience as casual players or hardcore players. In a way, like, this is so subjective, and the range is so wide. Every player is different, ultimately. You know, developers talk a lot about easy to learn, how to master. That's not actionable either. It's a great intent, but it doesn't tell you how to do it. So for us, it's about how do we get the essence of, for example, an action RPG or a roguelite experience, boil it down to a 5-minute session. And it's still, you know, on the longer end of it right now. But the runs used to be 15 minutes plus, to give you an idea of how far we've come, just to get the experience on mobile first, and then try to keep it as a mobile session, something that's just, an easy break during the day. But for us, it's about making a fun game, right? And keeping the essence of the genre. So that's what we've tried to do. And as an example, you know, keeping perks after a run is a way to just, let's say, offload this kind of progression. You already have some perks, you have a foundation to creating a build, and then you add on top of it. You don't start from scratch every time you play. So these kind of new mechanics were a way for us to just, keep the essence of the genre, but make it a mobile experience.
Maybe also it's the right time to introduce a game that has longer session times if people want to have longer session times and have a little bit more of a, like, not to say hardcore experience, but more serious kind of like try to be good at the game experience. Because like, I don't think we actually tried before that. Like, to actually, like, you know, we are seeing games like, you know, Elden Ring, like, blowing up so hard in the gaming industry right now. And that game is anything but easy, you know? And yet, it's doing bonkers numbers, and people are excited to play it, like, for longer sessions. And so I think also the team has thought about this and be like, yo, like, why are we limiting ourselves to, like, just extremely casual kind of games where we have the opportunity to create something a little bit more serious, a little bit more kind of like, okay, let me sit down and let me make some serious progression, and let me actually invest my time and get something in return. It feels very satisfying because I did such a good job of, like, playing against this boss, like this kind of floor. And I think what is very cool to see is that even the pre-alpha has shown that people with higher skill are going to get to a higher floor. I mean, you know, shout out to Thea, who single-handedly was playing Firecracker solo and getting to, I don't know, floor 35 or 36 or something. So it's like, that's just an example of, like, okay, yeah, if you're actually a really good player, there is something for you here as well.
It's funny because action RPGs are a genre that is very, it's known as a time investment type of game, right? It's typically, you're going to be grinding out your build and putting in the time to do that. At least in my experience, there hasn't been an action RPG game that's quick rounded. So I think if there's a genre where you do extend the play sessions, this could be a good one to go into. Talking about how you're kind of modifying how the whole genre plays and all of that. Are there any tech innovations that you guys, or features that you're bringing to the game that you're excited about, that you're willing to share? I see you laughing at me over there. All these things you have in your head.
Yeah, inventing pretty much everything. Like, oh man. I mean, it is the first Supercell game that's made an Unreal Engine. That says a lot. You know, that says a lot. That's a lot on its own. On its own. Like, even without adding anything on top of that. So yeah, how has been experience on making an Unreal Engine game?
I mean, it's been good, right? It gives us access to features we don't usually have with the in-house engine. Of course, it has its own challenges because we will need to bring some existing features from our engine to Unreal as well. So, but overall, I think for our team, for the game we're trying to build, that's been great. Yeah, to answer your question, yes, there's a bunch of features we're excited about. I'm not going to talk about them just yet, sorry. But yeah, I mean, we'll, you know, drop some sneak peeks on Discord every now and then when we're ready. And yeah, hopefully we have some new things to show before the next test.
One thing is that, like, even with previous Heroes, like, because that was also in Unreal, like, the game looked out of the box, like, just like unlike the most polished Clash IP game, and that's just something that like gives you the advantage, like just running in Unreal in such a high resolution. But at the same time, one thing that like we had to restrict ourselves to was iOS only and iPhone 14 Pro ideally for the playtest, for the pre-alpha. Because if you had like a lower end device, your device would probably be very hot within a few minutes of play session. And so, yeah, there's some optimization to be done there. Because obviously making a prototype pre-alpha version of a game in Unreal Engine 5, not the easiest thing to optimize right out the gate.
Yep.
So that was one of the challenges, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I was playing on an iPhone 14 Pro or something like that. My phone got warm, but I fought through it for the 3 hours, man. My fingers were not coming off the phone, and nothing died. It was all good. Plus, pre-alpha, you have all the excuses you need. So I assume using the Unreal Engine, there's a lot of extended potential. There's a lot more than you can do with this title than you've maybe been able to do in the past with development, which takes me to the next question again, how these are just leading into one another so well. Any chance of this being a cross-platform opportunity? I don't know if you're willing to speak on this, but action RPGs, you get people that sit in their chairs at their computer all day and grind these types of games. If there's any Supercell game to date that would be, fitting of the PC as well, this could be it.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense for the genre. Totally agree with you. Now, small team, tight schedule, priorities there. Our primary platform is going to be mobile still. Now we're not ruling out PC, right? And of course, it does make a lot of sense for the audience, but going cross-platform, we'll see if we can do it.
Fun fact, I mean, the game was playable if you would Bluetooth a controller into your phone during this pre-alpha test. It would actually be playable. Now, it wouldn't be like a perfect experience because you couldn't really super attack at
no
all.
Charge attacks.
There's no charge attacks, so you couldn't do it because we didn't map that into the thing. But technically, you could have already played with a controller. So that was pretty fascinating because that's like one of the little advantages that you just get from Unreal for like almost free when you're building the game. And so that was pretty cool to see a reaction on Discord when the playtest was like, oh wow, okay, this is interesting. So there's some hints here and there.
Oh, it's definitely. I mean, controller support since day one, guys. That's a great way to start.
Pre-alpha.
Yeah, pre-alpha, exactly. How do you guys, and I know you mentioned before how the tower is going to be forever evolving and changing. I could see, just thinking of other Supercell games and how the Supercell team as a whole thinks and creates, I could kind of see that in play. But what are other ways that you plan, if you're able to share or have any ideas yet, to keep the game fresh and engaging for players long term?
I mean, as we said, the tower is this, we believe at least, fantastic foundation for Liveops. Yeah, we'll talk more about the coming months, but the fact that it's constantly changing and evolving, we've got ideas of features or mechanics, small and big, that could change the experience and just keep it fresh. And of course, new content is part of it. Yeah, I mean, if you've played roguelites, I'm sure you have an idea of the feature set that you would expect. As simple as daily runs, weekly runs. Of course, we're looking at these features and mechanics just to make sure there's a reason for you to come back every day, every week, every month, forever, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of like just playing the game naturally and then progressing through whatever is happening in the game. But yeah, I mean, there's also like the fact that like the tower has been introduced and it is this mysterious place as to like why this exists, what is this location, when this was built, by whom. And there's a lot of like narrative opportunities there to like kind of slowly roll out the story that we are envisioned. And kind of like almost like with each update to have like a little hints on Easter eggs and stuff like that to kind of like tell the story. And that would be also one of the first games that would do such a thing, to kind of like keep the story going together with the players and kind of like give some hints and like kind of evolve things slowly over time. So that is also very fascinating to me, like having that kind of ability to kind of think about it. And also, to be honest, just like once we go into like further tests and alpha tests and stuff, like to hear from the players what kind of events do they want to have, like what kind of game modes do they want, what do they want to like explore, and then we can take that as one piece of feedback and also consider that as we're building things. But again, we haven't built any of those like operational things because like, again, gameplay first. So yeah.
A question that I kind of popped into my head while we were talking about Unreal. I don't want to get into any timing stuff yet, but just a question regarding the engine and how you build games. Is it quicker to build inside of Unreal Engine than the engines you're used to building inside of? Or is it a slower process? Is it one that you're getting used to because it's something new? How does that look as far as putting the game together?
Funny that you ask, because I haven't worked on the in-house engine, after all. So I don't have this comparison point, like both projects I've worked on at Supercell were Unreal projects, Clash Heroes before, and now Project Rise. So I can't really compare. To me, I think in terms of the feature set we get for an action game, a 3D game, it's just faster, because if you've seen other Supercell games, that's just not the kind of pipelines we have. So yeah, I think that's where we get a lot of extra speed. To be fair.
Yeah, I mean, so I worked on Clash Mini for 3 years, and I've seen like so Clash Mini. Fun story. It started as a clone of Clash Royale. So like at least the source of the game, right? Like you need to start from somewhere. You need to start from a base. And the game was actually Clash Royale. And then on top of that, we started building like the pipeline for like 3D models, 3D animations, different features that we wanted to have in the game and that kind of stuff. And so actually Clash Mini was one of the very first fully 3D games. Like you could actually say, oh, okay, so this game, as you like the core gameplay on the boards, like the 3D characters, everything was 3D. And that was a big challenge for us to kind of optimize and make sure. Like if you remember the beta launch, like the game was overheating a lot of devices at the beginning. So we had a lot of optimization to do because this engine just wasn't made to do this. And at that time. But again, we are also catching up to this. Like there is a lot of 3D work that's done in the background. So I don't think, it really depends like which team you're talking to, because for example, Team on Rise and previously Heroes already has Unreal experience. And so like when you're getting into things and starting prototyping, it's easier to kind of like wrap things up and like, you know, just play test them as fast as possible versus a team that's worked on Mini for 3, 4, 5 years and like ask them to make something in Unreal Engine. So it's just a different background. And you worked originally as a game designer on Heroes, and now as a game lead on Rise, and it's like obviously a lot of the team members have been around for that long, and it's been pretty efficient.
Well, that makes sense. So well versed on the engine just because of your experience prior. So
Yeah.
how it could evolve. And you also spoke of the community and things that you heard and feedback. Curious about PvP. Did a lot of the community voice an interest in PvP? Is PvP something that you think of? And what do you think about PvP being an essential part of a game for its long-term success? Just a general question about PvP in general, I guess.
I mean, PvP in general, most of us are PvP players on the team, I'm pretty sure. So, of course, we love it as a thing. Now, the game we're building is co-op PvE first, right? This is the focus right now. It's going to be the soul and the essence of the game. But, you know, never say never. Like, we're always trying new things and dabbling around. So maybe at some point, again, when would be the tricky thing. I don't think it's going to be, you know, before soft launch or anything like this. Like, right now, we need to make a great PvE game. But in the future, yeah, why not? But also, we do love PvP on the team. That's for sure.
I mean, yeah, like my background is basically all PvP games before Supercell. So, you know, it's like, I mean, and also Mini is PvP. I mean, oh my God. But no, yeah, it's just that one thing to note though, you were on Discord when the tests were running, and we saw a lot of feedback coming from the players, and not much feedback was like, we need PvP. Like the feedback wasn't, oh man, this game is gonna die if like there is no PvP in this game. And that is a really good indicator as a first step of pre-alpha, because if people are focusing on what is in the game and they're happy with it and they're able to play it 3 hours straight without saying, oh man, but I really wish it had PvP so I can like, you know, get myself more involved into this, is a good indicator that the genre of this game has been nailed, where people don't question it outside of that genre, at least for right now. Right? And so, like, of course, things may change. Like, as we add more features, people may think, oh, okay, so they can add this on top, and they can add this on top, and they can add this on top. And they can obviously start adding more feature requests. But we are curious to see, like, when is this going to come and be like, oh, man, if you don't add PvP now, like, you know, and so far it hasn't come yet, and that is a really, really good sign, I feel like.
No, I mean, you guys are focused on the tower and the primary, the primary game mechanic, and it's cool to hear that the community was not screaming in the other direction, so it seemed to be on point with where you are as well. That's nice. Regarding action RPGs as a whole on mobile, I mean, obviously you guys believe in it because you're here creating one, but when you think of ARPGs, you could think of a number of titles that are the top ranking ones. It's not the largest genre on mobile. How do you feel that you guys are coming at this so that you can try and extend the boundary that may already be there for the genre itself?
Well, it's a good opportunity, no? I mean, like that's what we find. Like, I think with Mini it was the same thing. You know, like auto chess was never like a extremely popular genre. Like, and the reasons were relatively obvious. Like the session times of those games at that time were like 45 minutes plus, and it's like nobody like really. You're gonna ask somebody to sit on their phone to play an auto chess like match for 45 minutes? No, it's not gonna happen. So I think. And obviously you can jump into this, like you guys are seeing opportunity with this genre to like make something much more accessible and much more fun and dynamic and rewarding than what is there, right?
I think for us the opportunity is, can we expand the audience but also keep the depth of action RPGs, you know? We don't want to oversimplify things, that's not the goal, but we want to make sure we can onboard as many players as possible onto the genre. So if we look at the market, there's more and more RPGs coming out, and they're this, high quality graphics, super polished experiences, and this is great, but to me we're getting more and more of the same. They all have the same kind of drawbacks: long sessions, high engagement, lots of grind. Can we do something different? Can we just bring a different experience to the genre? And that's what we're trying to do. So.
Yeah, I think that's the case for almost every game that Supercell makes. Like we try to like make something that's never been done before in terms of like, okay, yeah, the core gameplay is there, and then like how do we simplify it and then also like make it deeper and more impactful with every match, and it's a fun challenge, and it's something that's like we take very seriously in terms of like thinking ahead of time, and then like kind of like just trying to iterate as we go through like pre-alpha, alpha, beta and stuff.
I love your answer there. You said two things. One, you don't shy away from a genre, speaking of the auto chess, that may not be the most popular, but you look at it as a challenge to how to extend that and how to improve it, and how to do it, the Supercell way, as I like to say. Great answer. That's all I have to say. I mean, it was perfect. Obviously, being Supercell has influenced Project Rise based on the universe it's in itself, right? That's the obvious. But what other elements of being someone that has worked at Supercell have influenced how the game is actually going to look? Besides the IP, what other philosophies and things that you've taken away from the company are finding their way into that game?
I think the main thing for me is the opportunity to take risks, right? That's not something you get in a lot of companies. So, as an example, we've never done a pre-alpha before. But when we decided to do it, the company, the leadership team, everybody was quite supportive of it. There's a lot of unknowns, and it's risky, obviously, because it's new, and how are we going to do it without going live onto the app stores, and it's not a soft launch scale kind of thing. So there were a few things to figure out, but the mindset is never should you do it. The mindset is, okay, how do we make it the best experience possible? And I think that's just very different from at least my experience in the other companies I've worked at. So being able to do this has been amazing. That's what we really get from the Supercell culture.
Yeah, like the freedom and trust that you have. Like, I don't know who came up with this weird idea of like game keys and like the way of testing. Yes, and like way of testing the game through like Discord and like inviting people through all that stuff. Like that whole flow never really existed. We've never done it in Supercell ever. Like having a game key that's required from the game to like be input into the game to be able to activate it and play it, literally never done. And of course we made a bunch of mistakes. Like the flow wasn't perfect, and the whole like onboarding wasn't ideal. But we pulled it off, and we learned a ton from it. And so, yeah, as Julien said, like taking risks and like trying to do something that was never done before, learn from it, even fail and then like improve it on top and then keep going is incredible, because a lot of companies are risk averse. They're just like, all right, ship number 2, ship number 3, ship number 4, let's go. Like, that's the whole flow. And there is not much like, then at some point you stop innovating. You just like, you're doing the same thing over and over again. And I think it is incredible to see so many things like being tried like constantly, and not all of them working out, but you know, it is probably one of the few places where you can still do your best work and be satisfied that you even tried it.
You mentioned success. I would say 2 elements have already been highly successful. One, from my standpoint, from what I've heard from the community and from what I've seen, there was a lot of positive sentiment about Project Rise after people have played it, after people have watched the stream. A lot of excitement, a lot of people in comments saying, I've been waiting for an action RPG. This is what Supercell's needed to do. As well as 2 years ago when you announced 3 titles. It was Clash Mini, Project Rise, and I can't remember the name of the other one. Another one that you guys threw in the grave. I don't remember the name.
Clash Quest.
Yes. At that time, I was excited. I'm always excited about any game that's coming out by Supercell, but I was really excited about Clash Heroes because it was an action RPG. And in speaking with the creator community and friends and just the community itself, there was a lot of excitement around that because of, I believe, the genre. So 2 successes right there. Everyone's excited about hearing about it coming, and then they were again excited about actually seeing it and that it was fun, and seeing people that were putting out videos on it, streaming it, or even hearing from their friends that were in the playtest that everyone was really enjoying it was, again, a huge success. My next question has to do with development, alpha, beta, semi-global, and then global. How do you determine when something is ready to go from one phase to the next? Again, not asking for a timeline. I'm not going to ask you that on this meeting here today, but you know, how do you know that pre-alpha is ready to go to alpha? And then is it just how you're feeling about the game, how tests go with the community?
So for each phase we have very specific goals. I'm going to talk for our team because I'm sure every Supercell team has kind of a slightly different way of doing things.
Yep.
It's not like we have a template and, you know, this is the way of working. For us, pre-alpha is about core gameplay, validating, you know, the second-to-second gameplay, core mechanics, the game feel overall. Alpha would be about validating the metagame and also getting ready for production. So right now, until alpha at least, we are focusing on systems, we're not focusing on content. That's why the version of the game you played was so limited in terms of content, you know. You could have finished it in maybe half an hour, 45 minutes tops. So yeah, because we're focusing on the systems. And if we pass this and we validate our core loop, metagame features and so on, we'd work towards beta, and beta would be closer to something that you've seen for Squad or Moko, just having, you know, probably a 2-week test, something like this, where a more complete game experience overall, and then soft launch is the real test, you know, pre-global, let's say. Yeah.
I guess the last thing I want to ask you guys is, are there any insights, teases, things that you may want to share with the community that may be coming up next? I know that you know a lot of things and that you're keeping a lot of, you know, up your sleeves and you don't want to share too much, but is there any little tidbit that you want the community to know that they could look forward to?
Okay, one of those we've already shared on Discord, but just so that, you know, everybody's aware, Countess from Clash Mini is going to live on as a playable hero in Project Rise. So that's happening. We're definitely going to rework the perk selection system, and we're going to try to make it asynchronous so that it doesn't stop gameplay or interrupt it. Now it's got its own set of challenges, and we're still trying to figure out how we're going to make it happen, but that would be the intent, at least. We're going to do a first pass on, you know, very core mechanics like the elevator exit, just making it more player-friendly, making sure that it's just a smoother experience overall. Of course, we're going to work on communication tools because, you know, it was really a highly requested feature. So we're just going to prioritize it much earlier than we would have expected to do it. And we're going to clean up our 3Cs, so, you know, character controls, camera, just to make sure that we can still elevate gameplay and make it a better experience.
All the things that you mentioned right there are some of the things that I gave feedback on. One, communication. When you're playing with friends and you're chatting on Discord and you know where to be, super easy. But when you're on there with randoms and you have one person that's exploring the opposite side of the map, your 3-minute rounds could take 10 minutes before they come there. So it's really great. Many things are really positive about this. One, I love that you really did this pre-alpha test just to listen to the community, to hear suggestions, to either validate feelings that you already had, or to listen for things that you may not have even thought of. And I love that you're taking a lot of the suggestions that have come in mass to make changes and figure out ways to make the game even better. I saw everything that you just mentioned come through in chats, in my personal chats, in speaking with other creators. So really great that you guys have heard it as well. And I mean, Frame, the count is sticking around a little bit. How does that make you feel? That's got to be a warm spot for you.
Oh boy, time to cosplay again. Yeah. I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, I'm gonna pull it up again. It's super fun, and I love that Countess is beloved character across whole Supercell now. It's one of those things that will live on, and there's a lot of other things that will live on. And that's awesome. But I would like to just, also thank like all of you, the super creators that also joined us on the playtest and that gave us so much feedback. From you to Kairos to like Itsu to like a bunch of like creators that made videos also on the game. And I think the best thing that we've done was to also allow you guys to just make as much content as you want. And from day one, just like be like, listen, we know it's pre-alpha. We know it's broken. You will see goblins fly up in the air for no reason. You will see like you being stuck in the walls. But that is true pre-alpha. Like we cannot hide behind the state of the game. We said it. This is what a real thing is, and there is no filters between that and what you're gonna get. And I think that was the most valuable thing. To just like set expectations, and then when we say it's alpha, we can guarantee it's alpha. It's like, and then when we say it's beta, what is the set of expectations for those things as well. And that is something that I'm a huge fan of. I love transparency that the team has exhibited, and we will try our best to keep the current community on Discord engaged from time to time with small updates on what we're building. And again, those things are not going to be under NDA or anything like that. People can write about those things. People can make content about those things, like a small updates or whatever. It's not a big deal. Like when the time is right to start testing again, we'll let you guys know. But yeah, again, super appreciative of all the feedback that we've gotten, even from the YouTube comments on your videos. Like from the people that have just seen like three hour long stream of like, okay, so this is how I feel about the game without even playing it. Yeah, that's great. Like, let's see how the people feel like it, because this is the footage that they're gonna get.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's been an amazing experience, and it's always daunting, like releasing something in the wild, even more so when it's not polished or ready, for global or anything like this. It's super early. We just wanted to be honest and say, hey, that's the current state of development, but we need your feedback. We need to hear, are we going in the right direction? We just need answers to all these questions we have to figure out the game we're building, and that was really, really great.
Yeah, I want to personally thank you guys for just tuning in. Seeing you guys come into my stream was really awesome, and it was good to see that you guys cared enough to be there, as well as the other creators that you got to check out as well. I'm sure that they felt the same sentiment. Also, the freedom to play the game and make content on it, but not only to make content, but to be able to stream it live, where we can't edit stuff out and hide anything. We got to share with the community 3 hours of raw gameplay. And I think that says a lot about the people that you shared this with, a lot of trust, letting people know that I'm not here to beat down this game, but to share everyone, this is an early alpha version of the game, and this is how it's looking so far. So that was really cool that you as a developer, as a studio, put that trust into the community and into your super creators as well to do that. I know that not only was I excited about getting to play the game, it was really exciting as a content creator as well to be able to share it with the community, because I know so many people were looking for details like, where is Clash Heroes? What is all this teasing? And now what is Project Rise? So all great things, and a lot of excitement coming from my side.
No, yeah, and the feedback has been amazing. And again, we, as any game team in Supercell, we will never try to hide like the negative feedback. We'll encourage you guys as much as possible to be as critical as possible. Like, there's so many, I mean, like, from community to community, it varies on like the critical feedback that we are getting, but like it's always like exciting to me to get critical feedback and especially negative feedback, because it is something that we need to also listen and understand why is it coming that way. So keep it going, man. Like, we really appreciate it.
I did hear you say the next playtest. So when that next playtest happens, as long as I have access, I'll be diving in again, and I can't wait for that time. But I really do appreciate you guys coming on. Super early in the development of the game, you took the time to come spend with me, to share some insight with the community that really has passion and excitement for the game this early on. So thanks for coming and spending time. It was nice to finally get to talk to you guys and to share everything with the community. Love to have you back anytime that you want, or anytime that something big is happening. It's an open invite to come back to the channel and to talk about it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, guys. Have a great night. Thanks for coming on.